Good afternoon. My name is David Kerr, and Sherwood Treadwell was my friend, my dearest friend. And as family and friends today, this afternoon, we come to offer our thanks for a remarkable man. We also come to reaffirm our faith and to pay tribute to one who we knew and loved so very, very much. Nancy, I assure you that the love and the prayers of every person here and beyond here are with you now and in the hours and the days and weeks and months to come. Sherwood and I were great colleagues together, and I learned so much from him. One of the things that we all know is that he was quite opinionated. He was certainly sometimes quite impatient with mediocrity. You see, he expected people to give their best and to utilize their God-given talents. He challenged all of us to rise above the easy way. I don't know how many times Sherwood would stop me in the middle of a sentence and say, "David, that is not the right pronunciation." Or that's not the right use of that particular word. And other criticisms that went along the way. But he always did it with a sense of compassion. All of us knew of his softness. He was always warm and accepting and understanding of people and where they were in their particular life's journey. He made a connection, and he helped lift them up beyond where they were to try and show them how they could be even better. Oh, how he refined the lessons of generosity and determination and faith. The fantastic poem that was just read is from the book that he and Nancy wrote, A Flea Went to Sea. It was dedicated to all of his grandchildren, now all 15 of them, and to Nancy, who remembers how to play games on the living room floor. The proceeds of the selling of that book, several $100s, went to the Princess Basma Center for Disabled Children in Palestine. $3,700. That's a lot of money. And he went everywhere selling that book, too. I know he was at Wesley and here and everywhere else. What a gifted person he was. And as Tim said, what a family man he was. What a remarkable family. Oh, my. Married to Nancy for 53 years, and what a love affair it has been. Together they brought into this world Steve and Tim and James and Judy and Matt. And we were so fortunate, our sons who are here and their families, and we were so fortunate to be able to share in so many of the family celebrations, especially at the beach house. 4th of July, with all of the food and all of the games, and yes, Mark, the jogging, and the fireworks. And then going to the beach and walking in the sand. One of the memories that I have of Sherwood that sticks in my mind and forever will is when he and I and some of the family members, when that surf was coming in, we'd go diving into those surf waves and then we would ride them in. And what a great feeling it was. What a joy. What a time of celebration for Faye and I and our sons. Sherwood was for me especially a soul friend. Our families traveled the same roads together, and we shared so many of the celebrations and the disappointments of life. We grew with one another, and sometimes we grew because of one another. He often challenged my aberrations as only a real friend could. He was my mentor, and I loved him so dearly for it. Oh, how he loved to write and to read poetry, to listen to good music, to take pictures. Oh, my. The times that we would go to places like Booth Bay Harbor and other places. And Faye and I, throughout our home, we have so many pictures of flowers. And when Sherwood took pictures of flowers, he did it in a very special way, because what he would do is he would get down on his stomach, and then he would make sure that that picture was just right. And we have some pictures where the fog is just lifting at Booth Bay Harbor, and so you just barely see the flower in the fog. It's magnificent. When he was district superintendent and I was council director, we were up in one of the churches right on the border of New Hampshire and Vermont. And what a beautiful morning it was. And it was this time of year, and there was this huge maple tree, and it was all different colors of red and yellow and orange. And the church was painted white with a beautiful steeple. And then there was a flagpole with the flag flying. And he said, Dave, he said, I want you to stand right below the flagpole. And he went over and he got down on the ground again. And he took his camera and he took this picture. And it's looking right up. And it shows the beautiful tree and the white church and the flag, God, country, and world. And there I am in it. And he said, Dave, if you ever decide to run for bishop or for politics, that's the picture you use. He loved to eat fried sole. We loved to go to the movies. Our travels to Israel. And the night when Nancy and I got lost. We won't go into that. What special times. Trips to Ireland, to Italy, the garden, Francis of Assisi. And how proud he was of his Scottish and Irish heritage. At the wake, he had the Macaulay plaid on. And lastly, but not least, he loved the church. And he served it with distinction and total commitment as pastor and leader and navigator and innovator. One of the things that always griped me about Sherwood is that little black Cokesbury book. He carried it in his pocket all the time, and he would make notes of every occasion, but he would do it in such small print that he's the only one that could ever read it. They still have the books going back to 1954. 1954. I used the bigger daily calendar. I needed it for my eyesight. He loved all of the churches that he ever served, and they loved him. But he had a special place for this church, because after he retired, the bishop asked him to come and possibly help the church close its doors. They chose the wrong person to do that. When Sherwood came, the first Sunday he was here, he said, I want you to make me a promise that none of you are going to die for the next year. He did not have one funeral that year. They started building this church up by glorifying God and by reaching out into the community, and within 6 years, this sanctuary was packed, and a new addition had been built. And following in his wake, Bill and Ruth, who have carried on that dynamic ministry that he brought to this community and to this church. Sherwood had a tremendous passion for what could be. He had strong political views. He knew that we could be much better than we often show ourselves to be. He was against bigotry, complacency, ignorance, and injustice of any kind. I believe that he epitomized the words of Robert Kennedy. There are those who look at things the way they are and ask why. I dream of things that never were and ask, why not? And so Sherwood Treadwell was an inspiration to all of us, and we are stronger and better persons for having touched shoulders with him. He lived a life with distinction and fidelity, and we, each and every one of us, are part of his legacy. In 2 Timothy, Paul says, I have fought the good fight, I have finished the race, I have kept the faith. Sherwood did all that. And now we give him back into God's keeping. Yes, Sherwood Treadwell was my friend, and I miss him. Gibran, in his book, The Prophet, writes on friendship. When you part from your friend, you grieve not, for that which you love most in him may be clearer in his absence, as the mountain to the climber is clearer from the plain. Let your best be for your friend. As each and every one of us reflect on the life and the legacy of Sherwood Treadwell, his journey with us grows in significance and in beauty. And so Sherwood, after all of the political and theological discussions that we had over the years, after all the questions and speculations of this life and the next, you now have the answers. And while we know that you cannot pass those answers down to us until our time comes, we would ask that with your expertise and with your influence that already is in heaven, that you would please send us a little less noise and a lot more light. Whenever Sherwood and I received new people into the church, many times it was by profession of faith or it was by transfer of letter. I would now like to say that Sherwood Treadwell has been transferred from the church temporal to the church triumphant with the highest recommendation of his wonderful family and all of his dear friends.